All right. Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure to be back.
Today, we're going to be looking at some articles that you sent over about over-the-counter
Right.
crypto trading,
Right.
OTC.
OTC, yeah.
And it seems like the crypto landscape after the election is pretty interesting.
Very dynamic.
Yeah. So OTC tradings definitely seems to be on the rise, but looking at these articles, it seems like it's not just, the usual suspects, Bitcoin and Ethereum. So what's really going on here?
Well, I think what we're seeing in these articles is a real shift in sentiment from a lot of the bigger players in the crypto space. And, OTC trading is really interesting because it really is all about those big players making big moves outside of the public exchanges. So the fact that we're seeing this surge in OTC trading, it really suggests that there's a renewed confidence in crypto, I think directly tied to the election results.
Okay. So the election, was there something specific that happened? Was it a policy announcement or just a general sigh of relief kind of thing?
I mean, it's probably a combination of factors, right? We saw that the new administration's stance on crypto regulation is maybe a little more favorable than people had anticipated.
Right.
I think that eased some concerns, maybe, among institutional investors.
Okay.
And then, of course, the markets in general, post-election have been relatively stable.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of stability in the broader market may be pushing some investors back into higher risk assets.
Okay. So for those of us who don't, spend our days hanging out with hedge fund managers.
Right.
Can you just remind us what exactly is over-the-counter trading? Like why all the secrecy? What's going on there?
Yeah. So OTC trading, I mean, think of it as just a more personalized, direct way to buy and sell crypto.
Okay.
So instead of going through a public exchange like a Coinbase or something like that, you're dealing directly with a broker, an institution, another individual even. It's kind of like, if you were to go buy a rare book, you would go to a specialized dealer.
Yeah.
As opposed to just like going on Amazon. It's more discreet, it's tailored to specific needs, and it's really important, I think, for institutions that are moving large amounts of crypto. Because if they were to do that on a public exchange, it would really impact the market price.
Oh, okay. So it's all about discretion and minimizing that kind of market impact.
Exactly, yeah.
So I'm seeing in these articles, a lot of these articles are mentioning a surge in demand for Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Right.
Which I guess isn't that surprising? I mean, those are kind of like the blue chips.
Yeah, the blue chips of the crypto world, exactly. Institutional investors, are generally looking for assets that have high liquidity.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin and Ethereum definitely fit the bill.
Right.
They offer a sense of stability, less likely to experience those wild price swings, at least compared to some of the newer altcoins that we see.
Right. Speaking of altcoins, there is one name that keeps coming up, and that is Solana.
Solana, yeah.
It's like all of a sudden everyone's trying to get their hands on Solana, but it seems like it's through these OTC desks. Are you seeing the same thing?
I am. And what's really interesting is that it seems like this Solana surge is being driven more by individual investors than by institutions. And I think that's a really interesting distinction, right? So the institutions are kind of sticking with the more established players like your Bitcoins and Ethereums.
Right.
But the individual investors seem to be much more willing to maybe explore some of those higher risk, higher reward altcoins like Solana.
So people are bypassing Coinbase to get their Solana fix.
That appears to be the case, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So what's going on there? Is it, just pure FOMO, or is there actually something more to it?
I think it's more than just FOMO. Solana has really gotten a reputation, I think, for its speed and low transaction fees.
Okay.
Which makes it really attractive, I think, for particular use cases.
Right.
And plus, its price relative to Bitcoin and Ethereum is still quite low, so it makes it, I think, more accessible to individual investors.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's easier to get a hold of.
Yeah.
It's not as extensive an entry point.
Exactly.
But going through these OTC desks for altcoins, that seems like uncharted territory.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
And then, I'm reading through here, and I'm also seeing that options are being used in these OTC deals.
Oh, yeah.
And that just sounds even more complicated.
Well, it's interesting. Using options in OTC crypto trading is relatively new. It's definitely becoming more and more common, though, especially among institutions. And they're basically using those options contracts to hedge or to manage their risk.
Okay.
You can almost think of it as like an insurance policy
Yeah,
for
sure.
their crypto portfolio.
Okay.
If the market moves against them, that option contract can help to offset some of those potential losses.
Okay, so the options act as a safety net
Exactly, yeah.
for those big players. But how does that tie back into this whole OTC trading boom, especially with altcoins like Solana?
Well, it's really interesting. The growth of using options within OTC trading is really driving, I think, the growth of the crypto derivatives market in general. So
Hmm.
derivatives, those are financial instruments that derive their value from an underlying asset. So in this case, that would be cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And it's just adding another layer, I think, of sophistication and opportunity
Yeah.
to the market, which of course is attracting even more of those institutional players.
Right. So to recap, what we're seeing is these big institutions,
Yeah.
they're flocking to these OTC desks for the Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're looking
Yeah.
for the stability. They're looking for that discretion.
Right.
And then on the flip side, we've got individual investors. They're diving headfirst into these altcoins, especially Solana. And that's driving this like whole other wave of activity in the OTC market.
That's a really great summary. It's a fascinating sort of double whammy that's happening.
Yeah. And I guess this brings up a pretty big question. Could this growing OTC market, together with the rise of these crypto ETFs,
Yeah.
lead to greater stability and more mainstream acceptance
Right.
of cryptocurrency in general?
I think that's the million-dollar question right now. It's definitely something we all need to keep a close eye on and see how things play out.
Yeah. Is this Solana frenzy just a bubble, or is this like the early signs of a real shift? I mean, I think we need to keep our eye on Solana, especially how it's performing compared to all the other altcoins that are out there.
For sure. Definitely a lot to keep track of in the crypto space.
Well, thanks for breaking all this down. This was great. Really interesting stuff.
Happy to do it. Always a pleasure.
And that wraps up our deep dive for today. Keep those articles coming, and we'll keep on diving in.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See you later.